My name is AJ Sampson, and today on Baptism Overland, we are doing a full install and review of the coveted Midland MXT575 GMRS two-way radio. All right, today we're talking comms, whether you're somebody who's new to this whole thing, kind of just doing your research, don't have comms in your vehicle yet, but want to find a way to communicate with all of your friends on the trail, or if you're somebody who knows you need comms and you've been eyeing the MXT575 for a while now and you want a review on it, or if you're somebody who already has this and needs instructions on how to install it, this video is for you. Not gonna lie, it's probably gonna be a long one, but hey, it's the first video of the year, you guys, and I wanted to make sure that I fully covered everything that you needed to know about this Midland MXT575 because there's a lot going on with this thing. Either way, timestamps are below. I won't be offended if you just jump around to the parts that you want to watch, or just listen to this squeaky voice for about 30 minutes. All right, first let's talk about the basics of comms, right? Like there are a multitude of ways to communicate with the rest of your crew on the trail. You got walkie-talkies, you got CB radios, which are really popular for a while. You got ham radios, GMRS radios, you got your cell phones. You can just call each other and put each other on speakerphones, or my personal favorite, just roll down your window and yell to each other. You kind of want to get the communication system that everyone else in your crew is majorly running, right? Like you don't want to be the guy that can't communicate to everybody else. It doesn't matter if you have the best and newest thing that's out on the market. If you're the only one that has it, then you're pretty much just talking to yourself. Kind of like when I'm doing these shots, right? Like there's nobody there. I'm just doing these for dramatic effect. Now, I will say that the trend seems to be more and more people are moving towards GMRS. This just seems to be the popular way of communicating right now. CB radios, like they're getting kind of outdated. You can use walkie-talkies, the kind that you can buy anywhere, the ones that your kids play with, but sometimes those just aren't powerful enough. You can go with ham, but to use a ham radio, you have to have a ham license. And to get a ham license, you have to take a ham test, and not everybody really wants to go through that. So we're going with the next best thing. GMRS are really powerful radios. You do need a license to operate them, but you don't have to take a test. You just go online and apply. You don't need to get a license for every member of your family. You just need one license and anybody in your family can use it. So let's say you decide, all right, I'm gonna go with GMRS. Well, guess what? Midland makes amazing GMRS radios. They have a lineup of different GMRS radios, but personally, my two favorites are the MXT275, which I installed in the Jeep, and then this brand new MXT575 that they just came out with about a couple of years ago. Now, this caused a lot of attention when this first came out. A lot of people wanted this radio because the MXT275, that GMRS radio tops out at 15 watts of power. Well, this one gives you 50 watts. That's like the maximum allowed by the FCC before it becomes like illegal, right? Now, when I bought the MXT275, I bought that for about $165. This one comes in at a whopping $399. And a lot of you might say, oh my God, that's pretty expensive. Like you can buy a different kind of radio with a lot more features, a lot more dials, a lot more ways of programming it, customizing it, all that good stuff for $400. Well, this is probably not going to be for you. This is for people like me. I don't know my way around radio the way some people do. I just want a radio that I know is powerful, that I can plug in, set a channel, and I am off to the races. That's what makes the 275 and the 575 so appealing. It's so simple to use. You just install it, turn it on, pick a channel, and you're talking right away without having to worry about dialing in some programming. You don't have to plug in some software and do all that stuff that I've seen my friends do with their Baofangs and all their other radios. They've had to dial in those GMRS channels. I don't have to do that. I just got to turn it on and I'm good. Now, if you don't want to spend $399 for a radio, you can get the MXT275 like I have in the Jeep for about $165, and that thing has worked out great. It's been a champ. But I'm just glad that we have a 50-watt radio now, because here in Florida, we do get storms, we do get power outages, we get cell service, it's gone, and I wanted to have a radio that's powerful enough for me to be able to communicate, whether that's listening for weather stations, friends, or if my wife has to step out, I'll still be able to communicate with her. All those good things. It's good to have something that's really, really powerful. All right, so let's get to the unboxing and I'll show you what comes in this kit. Sticker. Gotta love stickers. User manual. And then here is the main unit right here. Notice anything? That's right. There is nothing in the front except for the jack for your handheld and then a USB-C so you can charge up your phone. There are no dials, there are no LCD displays. What's awesome about this system is that you can basically hide this anywhere. You don't need to have it in plain sight. The unit itself can come out of the mount. So you mount this somewhere, but they have quick release right here that will just allow you to remove this easily. Now on the back you have your power cable here, it's fused up, and then over here is where you plug in your antenna cable. Now over here you have the antenna that they give you. I was going to upgrade this to either their Ghost antenna or the whip antenna like I have on the Jeep, just to give you more range, but I heard that the MXT575 antenna is actually really good. So I'm going to try this for now. I want to see just kind of what range I'm going to get with their stock antenna that it comes with, and if I'm not happy I can always upgrade. Now over here you have your antenna magnetic base plate. The only thing that I really am not a big fan of with the MXT575 is that this magnetic base plate is so huge. I wish this part came off, but it does not. It's actually one humongous piece. I mean, look how big this thing is compared to the antenna. It's just so out of proportion. This is actually what it looks like when I'm going tubing down the river. And they want it that way so that wherever you put this on your vehicle, this thing is not going to move. You just need to find somewhere that's metal and plop this on. And if you don't have a metal area in your rig somewhere, they do give you a metal base plate like this with a sticky back. Mount this anywhere and then this will clamp onto that. Now I didn't put it directly on because if you do that, you're gonna have a hard time trying to remove this. So I just did that so I have some leverage. So what I actually did was I went and bought their 6-meter antenna cable. You can basically mount this anywhere. So if you have an area on your rig that has a hole in it, like my bumper on the Jeep, you can plug this on there. This is just a lot more discreet than having some sort of magnetic base plate somewhere on the rig. But for some of you, you might like this because it makes it like not a permanent install. Got your power cable, plugs into the back of the unit, and then this plugs into your battery. You also get the mount that you put in the vehicle that your handheld will go onto. And speaking of handheld, the star of the show and why I love the MXT575 and 275 series is that everything you need to control this unit is right in your hands. Like, you don't have to go to the unit itself, dial things in. Everything can be controlled right here on the handheld. Now up at the top in the middle is your power button. This whole thing gets turned on by that. So you just have to remember to turn that off whenever you're not using the radio because you don't want this to be draining your battery. But one thing that I love is that the fact that the power button is here and it's not on the unit itself, when I'm not out camping and overlanding and I'm not using this radio, I just have to unplug this from the unit and basically the unit is shut off. It's not running the entire time and I don't know it. Now next to the power button is your channel select buttons. You choose this, go up and down to choose the channel you want to be in. Now in the front, in the middle, you have your volume buttons, up and down, menu button, call button, your lock button, so that way if you have everything set and you're communicating with people and you don't want to accidentally switch channels, go ahead and hold the lock button down and that'll lock the unit and you can just basically talk and you won't be able to mess with any of the settings. You have your weather channel button, you have your monitor button below that, and then below that you have your scan button. So if you want to scan other channels, see who's on there, you can hit that as well. To the right is where you basically talk. Press that down to talk, let it go. And then on this side, if you want to add like a mic that you might want to wear on your lapel or whatever, you can plug that into there, and you can also plug in headphones. I will say that there are 2 speakers already on here and they're pretty loud. You have a speaker on this unit and that's what I use primarily. It just comes out of this unit, or you can turn on the one that's on this unit and you'll have it come out of that, or you can have it be both. Now you might ask, because a friend of mine asked me the same exact question, if all the controls are on this handheld and not on the unit itself, then why not just get a regular handheld? Well, there are pros and cons to both. Here is the handheld that I own with Midland. This is their X Talker, and with this, you get all 22 channels because this is GMRS and FRS. So you're going to get GMRS channels from 1 to 7, and then from 8 to 14 are going to be your FRS channels. They're only like 0.5 watts, and you use it to talk to other regular walkie-talkies. And then from 15 to 22, you get your GMRS channels, again, at a higher watt. You can't change the antenna on this. This has to be a fixed antenna because of those FRS channels, which means then you're not going to get that much of a range. The other downside is that this will die out eventually too. You still need these though. You still need these though because if you need to leave the vehicle, that's the plus about having this. You can take this hiking, or what I use this for is when someone needs to spot me on the trail, I hand them one of these. That way they can communicate to me and tell me which way to go and all that. So you still want to have these on site. You just probably not going to use it when you're in the vehicle itself. And that's why you want a vehicle mounted one, because these won't die. They are plugged into your vehicle. They're getting constant supply from your vehicle. You're going to get much longer ranges with this because you're mounting an antenna on the vehicle that this is powering through. And you can change out that antenna and make it give you even more range. Now, the downside of that is because you're putting that antenna on your rig, you're not going to get the FRS channels on here, which if you have GMRS anyway, you have your GMRS license, then stay with GMRS because you're going to get much more power. You're going to see channels 1 to 7, which are GMRS channels, and then it'll totally just skip 8 to 14, which are FRS channels, and it'll pick right back up at channel 15 to 22, which is the 50 watt power GMRS channels. Again, pros and cons to either having a handheld or one that's vehicle mounted. I personally feel like you should have both. Gives you a lot more flexibility. I use this one primarily when I'm in the vehicle. I don't have to worry about this thing dying. And then when we step out of the vehicle, we're exploring or someone's spotting me, then I bust out this thing. Now, I did buy a couple of other items that are not from Midland that I'm gonna need to use for this install, and one of those things is the Nagoya antenna mount. It's basically a mount that goes on the 4Runner tailgate. You get it sandwiched to the side like this, and then you have this little knob here that will allow you to move this in any orientation you want. So you can angle the antenna whichever way you want, or point it straight up, or however it is you want to do it, and then you just tighten it down right here. And then finally, I bought one of these. This is an Ethernet extension cable. I'm basically hiding the unit somewhere, and then I'm going to plug this into the unit, route the wires, and then put this into a hole that I make on the dash or wherever I want really. And this is going to be the only footprint that will tell you there's a GMRS radio installed in the vehicle. When we're not using the GMRS radio, I just unplug it from here and then hide that handheld somewhere. And then when we're using it, plug it right in. And that's pretty much it. That's all the parts. Time for us to get this thing installed. Good news is I've already done the install before on the Jeep, so I'm very familiar with how this all gets put together. So yeah, let's just go do it. Because I'm going to be routing the power wires from the engine bay to the inside of the vehicle, I wanted access to the area below the steering wheel. To open it up, I started with prying off the side step trim, which just pops off with the trim removal tool. That allows me to then pop off the left side plate so I can have access to the bolt holding the trim below the steering wheel. The top of that trim pops out easily, just grab and pull. Next, remove the 2 bolts holding it at the bottom. That bottom piece won't come off yet though until you remove the center dash trim. That comes out easily as well, just grab from the sides and pull. Once it's off, you can now drop the trim piece below the steering wheel. Now, looking down here, there really isn't any space down here. I thought maybe I could somehow squeeze that head unit in there, but if it was the MXT575, which is smaller, I probably could, but the MXT575 is a little bit too big to fit in there somewhere. I'm probably just gonna install that head unit somewhere in the center console. I should have space for it. I'm gonna have to take out the center console as well to get access to that. Alright, so I got the center console removed. Actually really easy. Just unbolt both shift knobs and then press it from the sides and it'll pop right out. I don't need to remove the entire center console only because I just need access to here so I can see where I'm routing my wires. I'm going to be mounting this unit right inside. I'm going to mount it in this orientation. That way if my wife wants to take advantage of the USB-C charging, that's still going to be available to her. And then we're going to put that Ethernet extension cable, we're going to run that and then out to here, and I'm going to probably put it right over here, and that's where we will plug in the handheld. Now right over here next to the 12-volt socket, I'm feeling underneath here and there's there's really nothing under there. So there's nothing that's going to get in the way. I can run some wires through that. Next thing I needed to do was run the power wires from the engine bay to the inside of the vehicle. I won't plug it up to the battery just yet. There's an area up high on the driver's side to feed the wires through. Next, I use a step-up drill bit to punch a hole inside the center console for the wires to pass through, and I used rubber grommets in those holes to protect the wires from the rough edges. Not sure how far back you can see it, but it goes in all the way back there, straight from the firewall, straight through, and then I lined it up with another wire that's down there. I know that if the factory has wires going that way, then they know that they haven't put it in a place that it's going to get snagged. That's why I opened this whole thing up, so that I can see where I'm putting everything, because I don't want this getting snagged by any of the pedals or anything like that. So I want to make sure that I cleared it. So then I have it looping here right above the airbag, and then it kind of comes down right there, and it'll sneak into the middle console. All this will get covered up once I put the trim back on, and then it comes out to right here. As you can see, it falls short. I had to cut it anyway because I couldn't get that little plug through the firewall. So I'm just gonna get some extra wire and basically extend this thing so that it comes in underneath here and then out through there, and then I'll be able to plug it directly into the unit. With everything open and access holes created, I started to feed all the wires into the center console, the Ethernet cable, the antenna cable, and finally the power wires that run to the battery. Alright, let's just do a quick walkthrough so I can show you where I'm at in the process. I did have to drill out another hole here for the Ethernet extension. I had a hard time trying to push this through that little hole there, especially with all the other wires already. So I just made another hole there with a grommet. That's coming out to right over here. So as you can see, here's the extension, and that's going to get plugged up to right there. So you'll see it come out on this side. And then here I have my power's right there. I soldered the wires to this so that I have a really good strong connection there that runs underneath, and then I just twisted them together for now temporarily because I want to make sure that power is running through this thing, and then once I know power is running through, then I can go ahead and add some connectors. And then I have, of course, the antenna wire. This part comes off, so you can remove this big piece and then be able to put it through a hole and go ahead and put it back on. And then I already routed it to underneath the stash piece here, and it's coming out right there. The plan is to run this underneath the seat and then go along the edges of the vehicle all the way to the back where we're going to mount it to the tailgate. I'll do all that later, but first what I want to do is get this thing plugged up to the battery, plug everything up to the unit, and let's see if we have power and see if it's functioning correctly. All right, here we go. Boom. Check 1, 2, do you hear me in there? Awesome. Now that I know the radio is connected and working properly, it's time to mount the Ethernet extension cable. After figuring out the location, I drew a 1x1 inch square. Then using a 7/8 inch hole saw, I punched a hole directly in the middle, then used a small saw to cut out the corners. It's better to cut it slightly smaller at first because you can always remove more material until the plate fits perfectly. Lucky for me, it fit perfectly after the first cut. And finally, I mounted a bracket with a couple of screws and then slid the unit into the bracket. Alright guys, take a look. Look how clean that is. This just plugs in so nicely right there, and then we can hang it somewhere over here, and then we can just unplug it when not in use, and that turns off the unit. All the wires going to the battery and then going underneath all this stuff, and then mounted it in here, making sure that I can clear this little tray that my wife loves. She doesn't want me to get rid of that, but everything is mounted right in there nicely, cleanly. Everything kind of out of the way. We can still kind of put some stuff there, and this just fits right back, no problem. Now I just had to route the antenna cable to the rear while hiding it along the way. I ran it under the passenger seat and then inside the rear door trim. From there it goes to the back, where I was able to tuck it under the plastic paneling and then up the side of the tailgate. Now for the last step, I clamped the antenna mount to the top area of the tailgate, screwed on the antenna, and then made adjustments to the mount to have it pointing straight up. Oh, and then mounted the handheld clip. Alright guys, my wife is on her way out. She's gonna run some errands. So I thought this might be the perfect time to go ahead and test out how well this unit works. I am in my Jeep with my MXT575 and the whip antenna, and she is in the 4Runner with the new MXT575 with the stock antenna that it came with. Now I will say that there's going to be a ton of obstacles between me and her. We live in Florida, flatlands. One person's not going to be higher than the other where we can get clear line of sight. Tons of buildings, houses, all that stuff. So we will see how far I can talk to her before this thing cuts out. And there she goes. Can you still hear me?
I can still hear you. Can you hear me?
Yep, you're about a mile away.
I can hear you, but it's not as clear.
Well, I could still hear you really clearly.
Okay, I'm by the hotels now.
So I can hear her. She's starting to not be able to hear me. And I am guessing because her antenna is much shorter than this one. I have that whip antenna, which gives me a ton of range. If it's that, because I can hear her. So obviously she's powerful enough to transmit all the way to me. So if that's the case, I may just have to upgrade her antenna to either the ghost antenna or the whip antenna to give her a little bit more. Can you still hear me?
It's static.
So she's getting static from me, but I'm hearing her still pretty clearly. I'm curious to see how it'll be when you go to the bridge, because you'll be higher.
Still on the bridge.
Oh, you got clearer.
I can hear you a little bit better.
Now, I will say that I'm pretty impressed by this because we're pretty far from one another right now, and I wasn't expecting to get this kind of a range, especially with her having a stock antenna. I know that on the boxes for these radios, they'll say something to the effect of, this will give you 30 plus miles of distance. But that's based on like clear conditions. Like you have clear line of sight. There are no obstacles, nothing in the way. Then you'll get whatever it is that they advertised. But you have to understand that there's a ton of stuff between me and her right now. So the fact that I'm still able to hear her, that's pretty impressive. You still hear me? Check 1, 2. Yeah, I think it finally cut out. Are you on the bridge yet?
I'm just about to go over. No, I'm getting on now.
Try to do a test.
Hello.
Yeah, I heard you.
I'm on the bridge.
She's on the bridge. I can hear her. That's pretty awesome. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Because you're over all the way over there. That's pretty far.
I'm at the highest point of the bridge.
All right, so she's now at the highest point of the bridge, and she can still hear me. So that tells you that line of sight's actually gotten better because she's much higher. So that's pretty decent. Let me see how far away she's at right now. 11 miles away. 11. How about now? Can you still hear me? Check 1, 2.
It's static again.
Still transmitting. How about now? Check. Check 1, 2. Looks like that might be it, guys. We got some good signal when she got to the top of that bridge, but I think we lost it once she started coming down. Check. One last time. No. All right. Roll the B-roll. Without a doubt, probably one of the cleanest installs I have ever done. Bravo, Asia. That was just beautiful. I mean, it's so clean. I just love that it's hidden inside that center console, like out of sight, out of mind, super inconspicuous. No one's gonna know that you have a radio in there. And then extending that Ethernet port to the side of the middle console so I could just plug up the handheld to that, like, it's just there, like it looks stock, and I wish I would have done the same thing to the G. Now, as far as the radio itself, I'm already very familiar with Midland products. I have been using the MXT575 in the Jeep for about a couple of years now, so I know how that thing works, and now I basically have the same thing, except that this one has a ton more power. I will probably be upgrading that antenna sooner than later though. It does work great, but according to my wife, I was coming in real staticky on her end, but she was coming in really really clearly on mine. So that tells me that I'm receiving her signal really well, but she's probably not receiving mine as clearly. Now I thought that maybe her antenna cable might be getting some interference, but I know I didn't route that cable anywhere near any other electrical components or LED lights that might sometimes cause some of that static. It's probably just a range thing. I'm going to actually take the whip antenna on the Jeep and put it on the 4Runner and see if that makes it a little bit better. But either way, I am loving the Midland radios that we have installed now. We have the MXT575 in the Jeep and the MXT575 in the 4Runner. The simplicity of it is just so perfect for the way we like to roll. We want it to be simple, easy to install. If that's you, if you want something that you want to just install right away and use immediately without having to know all the buttons, especially for my wife, she doesn't get into all that stuff. She just wants to press the button and it works. And so if that's the kind of thing you like, then you cannot go wrong. If money is not the issue, go with the 575. You're going to get a lot of power with that radio. But if $399 is a little bit too much for you, you can't go wrong with the MXT275 either. Like, I have used that in the Jeep for over 2 years now, and for $165, like, you're gonna get a really, really powerful radio. But anyway, that's it. I just wanted to give a big thank you to Midland for sending that 575 over. Like, you made my day, you guys. Like, thank you so much for sending that and allowing me to install it in the 4Runner. My wife loves it. I'm kind of jealous. I mean, you could send me another one and then I'll donate this 275. Now, I know the video is long, but if you did enjoy it, please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and also consider supporting us on Patreon so we can continue to make more content like this. And as always, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Baptism Overland. My name is Asia Sampson, and I will see you next time. She really is getting a ton of good stuff on this rig. I need to go check our marriage certificate. There's something in there about, like, what's mine is yours, yours is mine type thing, right?